Wow, welcome to Keeping Up with the Kingdom.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is episode 1. It has been so long awaited. I've literally talked about this for 9 months, and so
That was fast.
yeah, I'm like 9 months. It was a 2025 resolution of mine to begin a godly podcast, to begin this space where we can just come on and talk about modern day topics from a biblical lens. And so much has happened to getting me here today, but I'm so grateful. So thank you to everybody's patience, but encouragement and prayers as I've launched into this new space. And so I'm super excited to introduce my guest for episode 1. And here I'm joined by one of my best friends, Nancy Doan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nancy. I'm honestly so excited for this. Guys, I remember when she first posted it on Instagram, and I was so fired up because I'm just like, yes, people outside of our church can just see what our life looks like. I can't wait to just see the amount of people you're going to impact through this podcast.
Thanks,
and also,
Nance.
I'm excited to see everyone else's testimonies and anyone that you have on this podcast as well. But thanks for having me.
Many of you guys, well, some of you guys watching this may know Nancy, but let me just quickly introduce her for those of you who don't know. She's 22 years old, originally from San Jose. She was raised in a Buddhist and a Catholic household, and later on became a Christian in
2021.
2021, and it was, you were at a mall.
Yes.
And
Shopping with my guy cousins. And then someone came and shared to him about Bible studies. But he wasn't open to it, but he understood that I was like the religious one out of the family. So he told the guy, like, hey, my religious cousin Nancy might be open to Bible studies. And I was like 5 feet away, just like looking across and just, who is this random guy talking to my cousins? I walked
What's going
over,
on?
and then that was how I got connected with these Bible studies. And I was able to meet all the women that were in my Bible studies.
Wow, that's awesome. And so how old were you at the time?
I was 18, so it was
Okay.
like my first semester in college. And it was coming out of quarantine, so things started to open back up again. So everyone was like at the malls. But yeah, I had no idea that that day was gonna be the most life-changing day of my life. Because 3 days before that encounter, I had prayed
Wow.
on my knees. Because I was at a point in my life where I was so sad. Because when you're in quarantine, right, you're literally stuck in a room for like 4 months. It was like 4 months, right?
Yeah. Oh, it was,
So-
I feel like even longer.
Or like half a year, probably.
Was that my whole senior year in high school? I remember I was in North Carolina at the time, but there was lockdown. So I did my whole senior year online and my whole first 2 years of college online.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was
like
a really long
it was
time.
like a 2+ year pandemic.
Yeah. Okay. So, knowing how long that was,
Yeah.
obviously, with you and I, we were probably very busy people, just trying to not feel, not deal with our emotions. And so, my life was very fast paced. Like, I was never, like, not staying in one spot. And so, with the busyness of my life, it helped me to not connect to what I was really going through deep down. So, when I was in quarantine, it felt like I had to work through so many months and years of like emotional things I didn't work through. Like all of the sadness came up and I felt like depressed, and I'm just like, why am I feeling like this? Like, what's
Wow.
going on? And that was when I was struggling a lot more with like drinking and smoking at that time. What used to be fun became something that I relied on for like comfort and to just like get by, you know? Because when people go to parties and you know, like high school, like when we go to
Yeah.
parties, we don't go to it thinking like, oh, like I just want to numb out. The true motive behind why I went to these parties was to get away. It was very new when I felt like this sadness, and I understood that I had to like work through it but I wasn't working through it in the right way. Instead of going to God, I was going to smoking and impure relationships. And so that was when I tried reading the Bible on my own, which helped me, but I was doing it alone. So there was no type of guidance. There was no understanding of what I was reading. The Bible's making me feel good, but how come I'm not seeing change in my life? You know?
Yeah,
and
real.
So it wasn't until like that day when someone went up to my cousin, and then I was shown like more of what the Bible was all about.
I appreciate you sharing that, Nancy, and I have not thought about the pandemic in a long time, but I think as you were like talking, I was thinking about how God, he always works in isolation.
Oh my God.
And I was thinking about like, well, one like Joseph, and I'm like, okay, he was in a prison for how many years? And I think about David, like first half of his life is like what? Like in the fields with like the sheep. And I think about how a lot of these times, like the men and women like God uses in the Bible, like he works through isolation. And I feel like it's that time that he like, man, exposes the things in our heart. Like he prepares us for our calling.
He humbled
and all these
us
things.
real quick.
Yeah. And I'm like, I literally see as like, even you're sharing like that snippet into your life. I'm like, wow, like that's, I feel like COVID, it was so devastating and such a tragedy. But I do feel like God used that in a great way. And it says
100%.
It says in the Bible, like, man, that God appoints the times and places so that we may seek after him.
Yeah.
Which means that all the tragedies that have happened, like the good and the bad, like he allows it because everything is for his church to advance. And so that builds my faith. You know what I'm saying? Like even just like, even though I know, you know your life, but like even just like hearing that again, I'm like, wow. And so, man, so what do you think was like the difference in, because you had obviously been around the Bible, you know, like you were in these discussions, like you weren't new to religion, right? But what do you think was the difference in doing these Bible studies that you were introduced to by, you know, the disciples that you met at the mall that was different than what you were doing prior?
Yeah. It's so interesting that you bring that up, because I think the common understanding of Jesus and Christianity is we don't really know, like, or a lot of people don't know like the fullness of who God is. So when I did these Bible studies, there were scriptures that challenged my faith and what I knew, because every time I would go to church, I would get the same message of like, Jesus loves you, like he's here to uplift you and comfort you. And so I'm grateful that that's the side that I knew of God, but I never knew that there was like an authoritative side to God that was the one thing that I needed to actually guide me to the life that I needed to be on, you know, because it kind of goes back to like a parent and like a kid. Like the kid is not going to know what to do unless they're being told what to do. And so for me, I never had like that guidance. Like my mom and my dad, them being both they were divorced when I was 3, and so growing up, it was just me trying to figure out who God was. And so in these Bible studies, I was able to see who God was, like as a father, as a mentor, as a friend, you know, like all these hats. But the authoritative side of God was something that I needed. If it wasn't for the Bible, I would have lived my life out of emotions.
Wow.
And I've seen like where that got me, and it led me to more sadness, more hurt. That saying of follow your heart, do what makes you feel good.
So bad.
I did that for so long, and it got me nowhere but the same spot, you know. But honestly, even worse actually. Because that was just a culture. That was what we were around, you know, like
we're taught.
Like all of our friends, like we're very like emotions based, like feel good type of culture. And so when I did these Bible studies, the call to change my life around was something that was very different, because in church, no one told me to repent. No one told me that what I was doing was not pleasing to God, you know? And so it was very new. It felt like getting to know God all over again.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just so like, my eyes were open because I thought I knew God, but I didn't really know him. It was like I was in a relationship with someone and I was just using them for comfort.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just went to God in prayer just to like feel good. And then once I felt good, I had the energy to do what my heart wanted to do, which was to have fun, go to parties. And then if I was hurt again, I'd go back to doing the same thing with God. Like, it was a very toxic relationship, but not because of God, but it was because of me. I was the one that didn't obey scriptures, you know, not because like I deliberately didn't want to obey it, but I just didn't know that this was the missing piece to everything. Like, I would not be where I'm at right now if it wasn't for the Bible.
You bring up a really good point. What we typically see Jesus as is just a God of grace and not necessarily always a God of truth. When he's both. It is grace and truth, right? The story in John 8 of Jesus and the adulterous woman that was about to be stoned to death.
Oh my gosh. I love that story.
So good.
So good.
So good. We could literally unpack that. That would be a whole nother episode, you know? And she's about to be stoned to death. Which one? I'm like, where's the man? Like, it takes two to tango. Only the woman was brought out.
You know how it says, like, she was caught in adultery, right? Now, when you're caught in adultery, like, there's no way it was, like, seen in public. So, like, the theory, have you ever heard of this theory before? That it might have been one of, like, the religious leaders that was doing that with her.
That makes me so upset.
That way he was able to, like, use her.
No way.
To
try to, like, trap Jesus.
Exactly.
I've never heard
like
that
the theory.
And so I'm just going to read this out. But in John 8, it says in verse 2, at dawn he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." We commonly hear that and we just imagine, like, man, like Jesus, like, full of grace, not condemning her.
Yeah.
But notice how it ends, right? He says, "Go now and leave your life of sin."
Yeah.
Like, it's not,
he didn't
come
just,
as
like,
you are, stay as you are.
Yeah.
Come as you are, but you better leave changed, you know? And I think, and even hearing your story, it even in a way, like, just reminds me of the grace and truth where you were, like, coming to Jesus as you are, and you're like, "God, I need you. Like, help me. Like, this is what I've done. This is who I am." But I think you saw things in your life change when you actually, like, left your life of sin. We live in a culture where it's like grace, grace, grace. And, you know, we just see God as primarily this God of grace. But, you know, Jesus said, go and change. If we were to tell people that now, like, yeah, but go and change, like, people don't like that.
Yeah.
People don't like accountability.
That's true.
People don't like truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think, like, when we miss the truth and only rely on the grace, no change can be done. In fact, it's that grace that should lead us to change.
What do you think are some reasons to why someone doesn't want to change?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So this is going to be a little bit, I don't know if controversial, but I think it's like almost a form of Stockholm syndrome. Essentially, it's this pattern of the psychological sort of attachment that happens between an abuser and the victim, where there was this, I believe it was this kidnapping in Stockholm, Sweden, where there's this case where they tried to set the victims free, but they didn't want to leave their kidnapper. And over time, you can start to almost create an emotional attachment to your abuser. Now, the reason why I can even like say that that's like us with our sin is because our sin, over time, we can form a sort of emotional attachment to it.
Oh my gosh. We
idolize it, and almost it becomes our new norm, and we can get a sort of comfort from it to alleviate us from our present suffering. But just like you, was like, okay, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm like, just one more time. But then that becomes a cycle that years down you're stuck in. And I think I just started to replace my idol year after year. I graduated high school. I moved out here to California. I was like, American dream, I'm gonna make it. Hollywood, lights, camera, action. And so my first year here, I was 17, just turned 18. I ended up getting signed by an agency because my dream was to model at the time. And so for a year, like, that was, like you said, like, you know, you enter into a space, you enter into a relationship, or you enter into a job, like, it can start pretty pure-hearted, where you're like, this seems fun. Or you can have these deceived notions that, okay, when I enter this, I'm going to be happy. Or once I reach the status, I'm going to get friends. And we can start to put our hope in these things. And so just year after year, I changed it because I was modeling for about a year. I ended up suffering through an eating disorder during that time. And it was a really hard industry for me to be in. It took definitely a toll on my mental health. And of course, like, my relationship with God, because there's things like immodesty. It's just pretty worldly. And so I quit my contract after a year. I moved back home to North Carolina, 2021, so still COVID. Wow. And so I'm doing online school, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I was like just trying to run away as well, just from like things in my heart. And that year in North Carolina, I was like coping with the changes that I had, because quitting the industry, I gained 30 pounds. And so there's so much like emotionally going on where even like my self-image, like I was struggling with that. And I ran to drinking, I ran to smoking to kind of numb that out. I ran to a relationship. And so after about a year of that, I was like, I physically don't feel good. I'm like, I see, like, I remember the day that I like, man, like, even quit smoking. Like, a few days before that, I was at the gym, and like, I love the gym, and I was on the Stairmaster, and 5 minutes in, I was out of breath. And I was like, wow, like, I see the effects of my sin. So I remember leaving the industry. I remember getting sober. I remember leaving my relationship. And then I remember moving to UCLA, and I'm like, you know what? I'm become this big fancy law girl. I'm gonna be Miss Independent. I'm gonna make my money. And even at this like #1 public institution, like, I was literally like, I still feel so empty and void. And so for me, like, I knew these things were wrong, but instead of running to God, when I would take one idol out, I just replaced it with another.
Something else.
So that was like, I was like just self-deception, but I kept running to other things. So I think by the time I was at UCLA, and I was invited to study the Bible, I was literally like, okay, God, like, you've given me everything I wanted before. But I'm like, it's definitely not what I've needed. Like, I'm in the same place again, where I'm like heartbroken, hope deferred. You know what I'm saying? I'm insecure. And so just like you, where I was like trying to buy off time, I just replaced my idol. And so, yeah, then 2022, I was humbled out. And I was like, let's do this for real, God. You know?
What was like the last straw that like, what was like the moment for you?
Yeah. The moment.
Could you like remember? Like, yeah. Because for me.
Yeah. What was yours?
I went through a lot of different like relationships. And it was abuse. And so it happened between me and my stepdad at that time. And it was like 2 years, you know, of not knowing that it was like a unhealthy relationship. And so I think it's like pruning. I don't know. Do you know what that is? Like, I've heard of it, but I never like dug too deep into it. But basically, I think it's like when you trust someone so much, what they say is like what you're gonna go with, you know. And so after 2 years of like me and my stepdad, because my mom had like broken up with him, and she was with someone else, but because I've known him my whole life, I saw him as a father. And things just started to get really uncomfortable, but I didn't want to like say anything because I didn't want to believe that what I saw was happening. And so it would just be like comments that were just like not appropriate, you know, like hand placements. It was just like, wait, is this normal? And so I never got open about it, and so I just like kept it in, you know. But while I was like going through this, I was praying to God, because I understood that only he saw everything, you know. Like I knew God was with me in everything that I went through. So going to prayer wasn't something that felt like foreign. It didn't feel like uncomfortable to go to God about it. So I would like vent to like God in my prayers. And so when I got open about it to like my cousin, she's someone that I used to live with after like my parents' divorce. And so when I got it out in the open, that really helped me to just kind of like keep a distance from my stepdad. But it happened again with another guy. Basically, there was a similar relationship that I had with a guy who I felt like I could trust, because I told him about what happened with me and my stepdad. But then he repeated the exact same thing. But yeah, things just started to escalate. But that was when I was just super overwhelmed. I'm like, not again, you know. And so that was like what happened to me. And then I like prayed, I journaled. I'm like, I'm not happy. Like, I'm tired of pursuing men to get validation. So it's like I'm naturally fulfilled. I'm naturally feeling something that I didn't get when I was younger. And so it was just like a subconscious like action, you know, like my whole life of just trying to be in constant like connection with another person, you know. And so I think like I understood that doing it for so long, it actually wasn't fulfilling. And so I'm like, okay, God, I've tried everything, but you're like the last one that like I'm gonna try.
Yeah, like the last one standing.
Yeah. And God was so patient.
Yeah.
Like he didn't like, you know what I mean? Like he was ready to help me. And he literally acted 3 days after I prayed. Because there was so much that was happening before, but I saw how much like God loved me when he sent someone into my life. And wow.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think a lot of women can relate to that. I think in terms of like, usually, because I don't know what the term is. I don't know if it's pruning, but I know exactly what you're talking about, where we start to repeat these unhealed patterns from our childhood and start to bring them into our adulthood. You know what I'm saying? And it reveals unhealed trauma later on. Relationships we enter into later on, it reveals like wounds from relationships with our parents, you know? And so for you, like that was your moment that you're like, I'm repeating history. I think you were a lot more self-aware than I was studying the Bible.
Hey, we're both here. That's all that matters. Like, we did it.
We did it. Because I was like, man, I was thinking about that when you asked me, like, what was my moment?
Yeah, like, what was, like, the last straw?
Funny enough, when I was studying the Bible, I felt like when Jesus calls the disciples, I think it's John 5, and they have the full net of fish. And I felt like even the John 4 woman, because I think at that time, though I had like broken dreams in my life, though I had, you know, gone through, you know, these difficult relationships, and, you know, how it was still learning how to overcome an eating disorder and things like that, I was still at a place where I didn't think I needed God. And I was still deep in kind of like this now next stage of my life at UCLA, where I kind of ran away there, and I was like, new identity, fresh start.
So you saw that as like a new like hope.
Exactly.
So you were excited about it.
I was excited. So when I was invited out to study the Bible, at first I said no, because I was like, whatever, I've been to these clubs before, like, because I wasn't expecting, because how I saw Christianity at the time was very lukewarm, and I saw it as hypocritical.
Yeah, because I'm like, if I'm trying to like read the Bible, connect to God, but I know how my lifestyle is, who's really doing it?
At first, my classmate was going to her Bible study, right? So I was never directly approached, right, by anyone in our ministry. And I think it was totally of God, because I was too prideful. I would have said no, but I thought my classmate was cool. I was like, okay, girl, I want friends. Wow. So I came to that Bible study, and I think in it, I was so, self-deceived that I was kind of like, this is fun, but I don't know if I need it. And so,
because you were like at a good Like,
I felt like
you were in a good spot in your life.
Yeah,
right?
like I felt like I was rebuilding myself up, but of course it was from my own strength, so it was gonna come tumbling down. But I think it took a lot of Bible studies, and I think a lot of conversations where I had to come face to face with that real pain in my life and the sin I had done, because I was someone who was like, I'm gonna take this to the grave. So I remember when my ex-boyfriend and I broke up, because there was abuse, because there was things that I was embarrassed and ashamed about, I was like, no one's gonna know. So like I never told anybody about what had happened. Like I never told anybody about these things.
Did you feel like no one would ever relate? Was that why?
Like for me, it was like shame, because I was like, I knew better. And I was so afraid of like judgment and condemnation. And so I carried myself across, and I learned this in the modeling industry, where I had an image and I carried myself across like I was perfectly happy, I was successful. I mean, you looked at my Instagram, like I did social media before, so it's like everything was like picture perfect. Like I engineered this image. But in the Bible studies, like I remember the women were like, yeah, but like what's your sin? Like what do you struggle with? I was like, nothing. And then
Wait, really?
I literally was so prideful.
Wait, actually?
It was bad, Nancy.
Was it like the deeper studies, or was it
was
like...
the deeper studies when I had realized that my doctrine on salvation was off. Because I thought with all this, I knew I was hard-hearted by life and by my own accord, of course. But I thought I was saved. So I was like, I'm going to heaven. So I'm like, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I was like, who cares about my character? Who cares about my trauma? Like
God loves me.
Yeah.
He knows my heart.
I'm like, who cares about like whatever? I'm like, I'm saved. I'm going to heaven. Like, who cares if, you know, like these things emotionally aren't dealt with? But later on in the Bible studies, when I realized like that, you know, I had never actually became a disciple. I had never repented. You know, it says in Acts 2:38 to repent and be baptized for the forgiveness of your sins. I was baptized as a baby, so I was like, I'm good. Someone took care of that for me. But I was like, I never repented, and that's why I stayed a slave to my sin. That's when I realized I actually need God. Like, it wasn't just like, I want God. Like, I need him. And it was like that John 4 woman, because I think, you know, even when Jesus like, here, like, give me some water. And then she's like, you got nothing to draw with. And he's like, well, I got some living water. And she's like, what are you talking about?
Like, give it to me, please.
Like, she's like, yeah. Like, at first she's like, what the heck? And then he's like, if you knew what I was talking about. So at first, like, she's kind of shallow. She's guarded. And then Jesus goes to the heart of the matter. And he's like, well, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you have now isn't your husband. And he goes right to the heart of it. Yeah. And she's like, okay, I see you're a prophet, you know? And then she's like, tell me, okay, where can I get this? Like, I want this, you know? And then, you know, Jesus, and then she comes to the understanding that she was talking to the Messiah, right? He ends up revealing himself to her. And the first time he ever revealed himself was to a woman, which is pretty incredible. Yeah. And this is the longest recorded conversation Jesus had with anyone in the Bible, was with the John 4 woman. Pretty remarkable to someone who was a woman, someone who was half a Jew, someone who, you know what I'm saying, wasn't the target audience. No one would think that he would reveal himself. But all that to say, I felt like her because I think I kept things shallow in my life, and even in the beginning of the Bible studies. But I think once we started talking about sin and I got to the heart of the matter, I was like, man, like, I realized, like, there was just a lot of pain in my life. And pain that was, I think life is hard. Like, sin will do that to you. And then I, like, think coming face to face with that, like, the truth will set you free. Like, I think speaking about these things and the sins I had done, the sins done unto me, that's when I realized, like, wow, I need God. I think in closing, I guess a question I'd want to ask, like, you know, let's say, because there might be people watching this that don't even have a relationship with God, you know, and to someone who maybe wants to start pursuing a relationship with God, like, where would you recommend they start?
I would say to start in the book of John, because John was Jesus' best friend. Aww. And you'll witness all the miracles that Jesus did. Super inspiring, honestly. But one piece of advice would be to see it like building a relationship. So the way that we pursue, like, a guy that we like, we want to get to know him, spend time with him. We'll go, like, the extra mile to, like, drive far to, like, meet this person, you know? So if we're capable of doing that, we can do the same thing with God, you know? And so in the same amount of effort that I give to guys, now it's like putting that with God now. And what that would look like is consistently reading the Bible every single day. And there's no like wrong or right way of doing it, because everyone's connection with God is different. I think it just starts off with the consistency. So starting in John, like read 1 chapter a day, you know, and then just work your way. But in the Bible, in Psalm 119, verse 1-2, it says to seek God with all of our hearts. But if you read 1-2, it'll say like, blessed are those whose ways are blameless, who walk according to the law of the Lord, and blessed are those who seek him with all of their hearts. Wow. And the word blessed in Hebrew, it means superlatively happy. And so not only is it like a new experience of pursuing God, but what you get is true happiness. Yeah. But you're never gonna know what that looks like unless you give your whole heart. Like, don't get down if you mess up. Like, God doesn't care about perfection, you know? He cares about you giving your whole heart, you know? So if you giving your heart is reading half a chapter, then that's fine, you know? Yeah. And so he doesn't, like, compare, like, performance.
Thanks for sharing, Nancy. Yeah. I really love that. And just, like, adding on to how it's not a performance-based relationship, like, I think about different prayers in the Bible where you see Hannah, and, like, all she could do was cry. And those tears were enough for God. Yeah. And then you see David, who's, like, this poet, and is like, I'm going to write these prayers to God. Yeah, so it's like, even in the Bible, you see these men and women that we can respect and imitate, and they all had different prayers. Yes. Like, they all had different ways that they connected, but they all gave their whole heart. And so, wow, Nancy, I'm so sad our time in the studio's come to an end.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun doing this.
It just felt like we were talking. Like, it literally just felt like we were hanging out.
Yeah, I felt like I knew a little bit of your story more, too. Because I don't think we really sat down and told, like, our full testimony.
Not really. Okay, really quick, Nancy. The people need to know, aka just me. Are you Team Conrad or Team Jeremiah?
Jeremiah. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. That Team Conrad.
Team all Conrad the way. All the way. Just no doubt about it.
Is there really anyone that's there's a Team Jeremiah?
I think it's like 30 or 40% of the fan base is Team Jeremiah.
How?
You know what? It's crazy.
Yeah, Conrad.
You almost had me there, girl. I was like, no way. With all that said, thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
Bye.